What is going on, IB Nation? Welcome to another edition of IB Nation Sports Talk. After a night off yesterday, as let's see, there was women's basketball going on. I had a middle school band concert, and I'm assuming you just kind of had your feet up doing your thing, having a night off, right?
What was yesterday?
Wednesday.
I got done with work and hit a nice workout afterwards.
Look at you, so young and full of energy. I'm so impressed.
Not all of us have the Vince D'Addario metabolism.
No, you don't want it either. I can promise you that. So it is not what my metabolism was a lot better when I was your age, but it is slowed down considerably at the age of 42. So you just wait, buddy. It's coming. It's coming. Speaking of which, and nobody wants to know this at all, but I saw our buddy Frankie Karcheski today, and he's coaching some middle school basketball. Woo!
Over at Jefferson?
Yes, sir.
Man, can't keep his hands out of it.
I know. I'm telling you, he's in that feeder school system doing his thing. So
that's true. That's healthy recruiting, right?
Healthy recruiting, man. Above board. All right, folks. Well, you don't want to hear about people that you have no idea who we're talking about. So we're going to jump right in here to it is a Mailbag Thursday, because normally Mailbag is on Wednesday. We didn't have a show, so we're bringing it around to Thursday. So get your questions in, and we will do our darndest to answer them as best as we can. And they're starting to roll in, Jess. I was getting a little worried there at first, but we're starting to get a bunch of questions in. So let's just jump right in here with a non-football question from Joe. Let's see here.
You want me to read them to you?
Yeah, you read them. I'll bring them up. You read them.
That sounds good. Mailbag, non-football related. Do the Cubs sign Rhys Hoskins?
Ooh, this is kind of right up your alley, because obviously a baseball question. Joe is a Phillies fan, and Rhys Hoskins, I guess now, is a former Philly. And so he's wanting to know where Rhys Hoskins ends up.
This is a good question. I think there's a opportunity for Rhys Hoskins to end up in Chicago if some of their bigger moves don't pan out, because really, what the biggest question marks for this team are the corner infield spots, third and first base. Before the show talked, we were talking to you, you and I were talking, and right now Christopher Morel got asked to play first and third in the Winter League. So obviously there is kind of some preparation going forward of, Christopher Morel and what he's going to provide in terms of playing first and third. But I think you still have to figure out what's going to happen with Ohtani, what's going to happen with Bellinger. And then I think you might see, some Rhys Hoskins talk. But Joe brings up a good point. Bryce Harper is going to pretty much be a first baseman for the rest of his career. I think with all of those elbow problems that he had, that they are trying to limit his exposure in the outfield. And naturally, that's what you kind of see for these guys, especially sluggers, as they get older. They just, they stick them at first base and tell them to go do their thing. First base is probably the easiest position to pick up, right? In terms of if you had to play a new position. So I think, like I said, Cubs need a first and third baseman. I just think they're going to let a couple things shake out before they ultimately make those decisions. I don't know. Maybe Ohtani might play first base too at some point. If the Cubs are like, hey, if you're going to be a pitcher for us, we don't want you playing in the outfield. That's something you could see, Ohtani being a first baseman, DH, and then obviously pitcher along the line. So I just think it all kind of matters. It's all going to be a domino effect depending on what happens with Bellinger and Hoskins.
It's the domino. Yeah, it's the domino effect. I was reading various articles today about basically it's down to the Cubs and the Dodgers are going to be in a bidding war for Ohtani. And if they land Ohtani, then that's the domino effect of what else they can do, because that's going to be a lot of money that they're going to have to fork over. But at the same time, the way I look at the Ohtani deal, if they can get it done, yes, it's going to be a very expensive deal to do, but you're getting a slugger and you're getting a pitcher. And so, you can look at it. It's like a 2-for-1, in my opinion. Now, I wouldn't pay double, obviously, but it is kind of a 2-for-1. You're getting a pitcher and a hitter. So I do like that. I think of course, ideally we would all like them to get Bellinger and Ohtani, but that's a lot of money wrapped up into 2 players. So don't see that one happening. And so if they don't get Ohtani, I think they turn their eyes towards Bellinger and then down the line. So like you said, I think a domino effect is the call. That's a good call for sure. We do have a super chat from Wicked Bronco Productions.
Off topic, but what are your thoughts on the James Madison situation? By far the best group of 5 team and should get to play for your New Year's Six Bowl. Also heard we are going after Cottrell from Texas A&M at wide receiver. Better chance we get him or McAllister Boise. I'll go ahead and go first on this one, Vince.
Hit it.
So the thing I struggle with James Madison is if you look at their schedule, I mean, let's closely kind of go through the games so far. They played Old Dominion, Georgia State, Coastal Carolina, Bucknell, Troy, Virginia, Utah State, South Alabama, Marshall, Georgia Southern, Old Dominion, Georgia State. Maybe some of those games were some carryovers from last year, Connecticut. I guess what I'm getting at is James Madison's toughest game so far was Virginia. That's the only Power 5 team they've played, and they beat them by 1 point. I get what James Madison what they are doing is impressive, but they don't belong in the top 25 to me. And I think you're crazy if you're telling me anyone that voted to put them in the top 25, I guarantee none of them would take them to beat any of the other teams in the top 25 if they had to bet on it at the end of the day. There's just not a chance. There's not a chance that any voter would say that they would put money on James Madison to beat any of those other programs in the top 25. So I don't think that they deserve to be the New Year's Six Bowl just because of the fact that they really haven't played anyone great. I think they'd get stomped by anyone in the top 25. And then most importantly, James Madison just made a jump, I believe, from whatever level they were at into officially being. And so that there is always a grace period, no matter what, for any team that transitions, no matter if it's football, baseball, basketball. And that's mainly just for the safety of the program and the safety of the players. And so, a rule is a rule. They unfortunately, because of this reason, cannot participate in a bowl game, and let alone a New Year's Six bowl game. And I remember, I want to say it was one of the California schools in basketball. I can't remember. They went from Division II to Division I, and even though again that they had success, it's just a transition period because you don't know what's going to happen to those teams in those first year or two. It's to protect them essentially at the end of the day.
Right. No, I agree. I kind of looked into that this afternoon about what is going on with James Madison and why they're not allowed. Did they do something wrong, et cetera? But it makes sense because it's a different level of play. Now, their schedule doesn't necessarily promote the fact that it's a different level of play, but at the same time, and I also, I get the fact that it's, the best group of 5 gets to be in a New Year's Six and, all of those different things, which, by the way, I'm not a huge fan of that rule in the first place, but at the same time, I understand it. You want to give some love to the group of 5 teams because normally they're not going to get into a New Year's Six game. And at the end of the day, the New Year's Six games don't matter. They don't matter, period. And so they're trying to throw them a bone. But again, you match up James Madison with Tulane, for example. They're the highest ranked group of 5 team right now.
I'd take Tulane.
So would I. And I think most people who actually had money on the line that doesn't have James Madison on their chest would probably think the same thing. So, at the end of the day, I understand why James Madison folks are upset. I get it. You're undefeated. You're having a great season. All of those. We had a local high school team here that was undefeated, and they were playing a terrible schedule. But at the same time, they were undefeated, and they're excited about it, and they're boasting about it, and all of those different things. First round of the playoffs, they get beat by a team that won 2 games. It'd be the same situation for me. You know what I mean? They would go and let's say they go play in the New Year's Six game. The game's over before it starts. So, that's how that one is for me. I feel for the James Madison people. Here's what's unfortunate for me. What's unfortunate is after an undefeated season, they don't get to play in any bowl game whatsoever. Because there's plenty of lower tier, lower level bowl games that they could go and be competitive in, and it'd still be an awesome experience for their players. But a New Year's Six game is a different conversation for me.
Well, it's just procedural. It's unfortunate that this team is 10-0, and so it makes it seem like they should be in a bowl game. But regardless if you're 10-0, 0-10, 5-5, you still have the same rules as everyone else. You still have to wait during that kind of, during your transition when you're switching, levels amongst the NCAA.
Yep. Well, Wicked Bronco Productions has a say in what is going on here. And with another super chat, James Madison's schedule isn't bad. The Sun Belt is the best G5 conference, in my opinion. James Madison almost beat Louisville last year at Louisville. They are 10-0 and are blowing out the best teams in Sun Belt like App State and Georgia State.
Yeah, it's not bad, but none of those again, the best opponent on that schedule is Virginia, and Virginia is not great this year, and they beat Virginia by 1 point, and so, and I get, that they played well against Louisville last year at Louisville, but that's last year. This Louisville team is much better this season. Obviously,
Right.
ranked number 10 in the country, I think, or they're in that general area. And so, yeah, like I don't disagree that they're amongst one of the better teams of, in the G5 conference, and that they probably play, they're beating some teams handily, but I think a lot of teams would handle Appalachian State, Georgia State, Bucknell, Georgia Southern, Old Dominion, Connecticut. Like, I just don't find those wins to be very impressive. So I don't know. I just, unfortunately, the rules are kind of the rules, and nothing about James Madison overly impresses me.
Yeah.
And if they're truly this good, then they can continue to sustain this success over the next 2 to 3 years, and they can get in, and then we'll truly find out, right? Like, it's kind of on James Madison at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, I get where Wicked Bronco Productions is coming from. I think they deserve to be in a bowl game. That's fine. But here's the deal. They signed up with the NCAA. They knew this going in. So it's like, you can't complain about a rule that you signed
knew
up
was
for.
coming.
I mean, it's kind of a classic case of, well, you signed up for it. Like, what do you want me to do? So again, it stinks, but next year they're going to have an opportunity to repeat what they did, and they'll have an opportunity to do that. So we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, and I think DK brings up a really good point: is give James Madison Notre Dame schedule. Would they find themselves in the same situation? I don't think so.
Well, right now Louisville's a top 10 team. They were not that last year. So just saying, and that's not James Madison's fault. They scheduled an ACC team, and I get that, but Louisville was not good last year. They just weren't. All right, let's see what else we got here we can throw up. All right, here's one from Joe.
Joe says, who do you think is more nervous, Sam Hartman or his old teammates at Wake Forest?
I don't think anybody's nervous, if I'm being honest. Like, Wake Forest, I'm sure that they think they've got an upper hand because they got an opportunity to go up against Sam Hartman, who they know like the back of their hand. Okay, that's fine. I don't think a sixth-year senior and Sam Hartman is nervous about playing against, Wake Forest. I don't know if that's the word I would use. Maybe anxious. Maybe he's like overly excited for it. I just don't think I would use the word nervous.
Yeah, I don't think I would use nervous either, just because Sam Hartman obviously played in that system. He knows it. He'll be prepared for it. I think the only thing that if there's something to be nervous about, I would be nervous about Sam Hartman pressing too much because it is his old program, or wanting to prove a statement or be like, this is why I transferred it, and pressing too hard against a bad team can lead to some bad results. And so that would be the only thing. And I think in terms of Wake Forest side, I think that they just have to be a little bit nervous that they still can read Sam how they want to. And yeah, at the end of the day, I just don't see how Wake Forest really. And the thing is too, is I don't think Wake Forest is even concerned that Sam Hartman is playing quarterback anymore, right? Like
Right.
I think you'll get through that in the beginning. Guys will be on the field, kind of, oh, so good to see you, and then after the game, yeah, so good to see you. But really, between that, I just think it's a great opportunity for Sam Hartman to go out and kind of maybe close the door on that final chapter in his football career just because of, everything, how meaningful Wake Forest probably was to him at the end of the day.
No, I like that answer. I think there'll be some anxious moments maybe before the game starts, but once it does, I mean, look, I know we've said this before, and it has come back to bite me personally in the butt. But there's a talent gap between Wake Forest and Notre Dame. I mean, if Notre Dame goes out and plays their game, this is not going to be a close game, and Notre Dame has played well at home. And so it's not a faceless opponent for Sam Hartman like the other game should have been for him, because obviously he knows everything about Wake Forest and he knows every player he's going to go up against and all of that. But at the same time, I just don't think he's nervous. This is his home turf now. He's at Notre Dame. He's the quarterback at Notre Dame, and an inferior team is coming in to play them on senior day. Like, a lot of that kind of stuff, a lot of those headlines, if you will, they're effective, before the game starts. As soon as the game goes, the kickoff happens, like that stuff goes away and you're playing ball. So I guess to answer the question for Joe, which I think is a good question, by the way, I would say his old teammates are more nervous than Sam Hartman is, just because I think it's a 4-win Wake Forest team is going into Notre Dame Stadium to play a 7-win Notre Dame team who is much better than them. And so that's why I would say, if I have to answer the question, which is the point of all this, I would say that his old teammates at Wake Forest are more nervous. All right, let's see. What question can I call? Oh, here's a good one from DK.
DK, what's your take on CJ Carr coming early, and what does that change, if anything at all?
I mean, my take on CJ coming in early is, if he can do it and it works out and the high school is good for it and all of those different things, right? Then great. I mean, he can spend his Christmas break where he would normally be hanging out with his friends and whatnot. He can spend it at Notre Dame going to practice. I mean, if I was in his shoes, I think that would be a great kickstart to his career. You get 15 practices or whatever it is. You get to travel with the team. You get to, do all of the things that you get to do as a D1 athlete at the University of Notre Dame. I think it's a great kickstart to spring practice, where it would be his first go, practice-wise anyway. Does it change anything? The only thing it changes is his preparation. And if it is a true quarterback competition going into the spring, then this gives him a little, not a leg up on the competition, but a leg up from where he would have been if he just came in the spring. He's got 15 extra practices. That's 3 weeks worth of practice, man. Like, that gives him more of a foundation than going into spring. So I think he becomes a legitimate contender for the starting job in 24. Doesn't change anything for the bowl game. He's just going to practice. He's not going to play or anything like that. It's just, I just think it would be a great opportunity for him to come in and get some extra practice in.
So my take on CJ Carr coming in early, I think that's a great decision for him personally and where he wants to take his game to the next level, right? And I think that what it changes is, and I think what it changes, what it impacts is all kind of synonymous of each other. Is I think his goal of coming, Vince, is to bridge that gap between himself and Angeli and Minchie as much as possible, because like you said, getting 15 practices in, that's a second spring ball, essentially, if you look at it. And so he's getting a spring ball before spring ball. And so I really think what his, long-term goal is he wants to be on the same playing field as Minchie and Angeli by the time the real spring ball starts. He wants to have a good understanding of the playbook. He wants to have a good understanding of the mechanics of the offense before he actually enters, a spring ball where it's actual competition. Because when he comes now, there's no expectations. It's no competition. It's just CJ Carr coming and immersing himself with as much information as possible before the actual spring ball starts. So again, I think this decision is solely predicated around the fact that he wants to bridge that gap between himself and Minchie and Angeli and have it be as much of an equal playing field as possible by the time real spring practice starts.
Yeah.
in March or whatever it might be.
Well, because most of the time, these early enrollees, they enroll like the first or second week of January, and then they go through all the off-season, weight room, conditioning, like all of that before they hit the field, at the end of March. And so now he's going to have, if this actually does happen, he's going to have this foundation of actual practice time and actually going through the motions of the Notre Dame offense. It's not just on paper anymore or on iPad or whatever. It's not this conceptual idea. Now it's like real life. Like he went through it. He knows questions that he can ask. He understands what he was seeing and all of those different things. It just gives him a great foundation going into spring. And like I said, I think it makes it more of a realistic competition.
Yes,
in spring ball.
I would say the first thing, when I entered college in my first spring ball, or sorry, first kind of not even spring ball, fall camp, right? Like when I showed up as a freshman, and then that camp until the beginning of the season, really what weighed me down the most was I didn't understand the defense. I didn't understand the playbook. I didn't understand how things work in unison. And again, I think that's but when I got through that, I really excelled that, after that first season in spring ball. And so I really think that's CJ Carr's ultimate goal is he's just trying to make himself comfortable before competition really starts, because how can you compete if you don't really know what you're doing?
Yep. Could not agree more on that one. All right. Joe has a question about Al Golden.
Joe says, what do you think the chances are of possibly keeping Al Golden after this season?
Jesse, it's hilarious to me. A year ago, like right now.
Not even beginning of the season still.
Oh, he was a GOAT, man. And I don't mean that in a good way, right? Like
all because of that stupid red zone stat.
Man. And look, I get it. It was a bad stat. Like, he was like Oprah when they got into the red zone. You get a touchdown. You get a touchdown. Like, I get it. I get why people were upset. Now he's a Broyles Award finalist, I believe, or a semifinalist, whatever level they're at right now, for the best assistant coach in the game of football. And now everybody's like, oh, we got to keep Al Golden. We got to keep Al Golden. It's just funny to me. But as far as the chances, I think Al Golden is going to be very smart about what his next move is, if anything. I think the right opportunity to be a head coach at the college level is going to have to be there, number one, if that's the route that he wants to take. I think the right NFL position, if that's the route he wants to take, needs to be open. I'm not saying head coach, but I am saying defensive coordinator in the NFL. I could see him going that route, but I also say that it has to be the right fit for him specifically. Like, does he go back to the Bengals? Does he, whatever the case may be, like, I think it has to be the right spot for him. Because if not, he's going to come back to Notre Dame because he knows what he has here at Notre Dame. And going into year 3, which would be, frankly, unprecedented for a defensive coordinator in like the last decade at Notre Dame, I think that could be a really good thing for Notre Dame, obviously. And it could be a good thing for Al Golden, too, because then the next offseason, if the right position presents itself, then he has an opportunity to kind of jump at it. So I think right now it's 50-50 because I don't know what all is going to be out there in the offseason for him to jump at.
So I think this is a pretty loaded question because I'm not convinced that Al Golden necessarily wants to leave quite yet. And I think if he does leave, you have to look at it through two different lenses. Lens one would be if he goes to the NFL, I don't think he aspires to be a head NFL coach. I think he aspires to be an NFL defensive coordinator. And then the other lens would be if he stays in the college realm. I think that, again, I don't know what is the word? How it's not excited. That's a lame word. Like how much he really wants to be a head coach. Right. And so through lens one, again, I think college is more, if he wants to be a head coach, I think that's where it's going to be college. If he wants to go to the NFL, I think you'd more so see him in the role as a defensive coordinator. But again, I don't see him as a guy who ultimately really wants to be a head coach again at the end of the day. And no matter if that's in the college or the NFL level. And if he does become a head coach, I think it would make more sense to be at the college level. So I think he's going to be back just for I think he's kind of still working on, who he is as a defensive coordinator and what he kind of wants in that next step. I don't think he ultimately knows. And that's just my speculation. I could be completely wrong. But again, I just don't think he really is aspiring to be a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Al Golden from, the guy on the other side of my door here. Like, I don't know Al Golden, and I can only, speculate as to what his career timeline has looked like and where he's at. He was a linebacker, like most recently, right? He was a linebackers coach for the Bengals, went to the Super Bowl. He became the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame. You would think that the next step would be a step up. If there's a next step for Al, it would be as a head coach in college or a defensive coordinator or head coach in the NFL. I honestly have no idea what direction he wants to go and if he's ready to make that jump. I don't know. Again, I think he's going to be very smart about the situation because unlike last year, according to fans and whatnot, I don't think he had a ton of options, right? I think after this year, I think he's going to have options, but are they the right options for him? I think that's going to be the biggest thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think he's been around the block too much to jump at any old head coaching
It's very
job.
calculated. It's going to be very calculated.
100%.
It has to be a good situation, right? It's just like you were
Right.
saying, it's not just going to be any situation.
Absolutely. Joe has another one here.
Boston College comes back on the schedule in 25. Do you think that's a rivalry that should be a yearly thing? Personally, love it.
That's a good question. I mean, it's always kind of been like that kind of a second tier rivalry, Jess, at least since 93. I know that Boston College has always looked, at Notre Dame as, disdainfully as like the little brother or whatever of Catholic universities in America and in college football. And I believe they're the only two Catholic universities that play Division I football. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So there's a lot of similarities there, obviously, between Boston College and Notre Dame. I would say it already is a rivalry. I think that I don't know that I need it to be every year, though. That's the thing, because I don't know that Boston College really brings the sustained success that you would want from a rivalry game. And so I'm cool with like 2 on, 2 off, that kind of thing, or maybe 4 on, 4 off, like home away, home away. I would be fine with that, but I already think it is a rivalry, and I think that that's a good thing.
Yeah, so I think what makes Boston College so relevant, Vince, is it's the Holy War, and like you said, it's the two biggest Catholic universities playing each other. And to me, it is an established rivalry because I don't know if I've ever gone through this logic with you, Vince, but I'm a fan of the trophies. And so if there's a trophy between two teams, that's a rivalry. And the Leahy Memorial Bowl, or I think that's the name of the trophy, there is an actual trophy between Boston College and Notre Dame, depending on who wins the game. And so, I'm on the same page with you. I like the fact that it is a rivalry. I like that Notre Dame plays Boston College, but I don't think it needs to be on the schedule every year because of, that reason. They already have, the Navies, the USCs, the Stanfords, and I think that those programs provide more than what Boston College does on an annual basis. And so that's kind of where I look at it. And so it is definitely an established rivalry, in my opinion, but I think it's like you play them 5 times every 10 years or 6 times out of every 10 years type of situation. I don't see it as needing to be on the schedule every season.
I think Boston College is actually more of a rivalry with Notre Dame than Stanford is.
Yeah, I could get behind that.
You know what I mean? And they play Stanford every year, but they play Stanford every year because of where it's located, not necessarily because of who Stanford is. You know what I mean? Like, and I realize they're going to be an ACC team now. I really dislike the fact that they came out and said, well, we're going to keep the Stanford rivalry alive. Like, really? Like, that's not the one that we needed to keep alive, but, whatever. So if you're making me choose between Stanford and Boston College, I would actually choose Boston College. I mean, I don't know how anybody else feels about that. I actually have more respect for Boston College as an institution than I do Stanford. But That's not reality. And so I would not mind if, like I said, Boston College was on again, off again, but on a consistent basis, on again, off again. So that'd be cool. See what else we got here. Oh, here's going to be one that's going to tick a lot of people off, I would imagine.
Ben Tarnowski says, since we have to add a game to the 2024 schedule, who would you like to see on it? Something to bolster the strength of schedule, or does it have to be an ACC team?
So we've talked about this on the show a little bit, Ben, and nothing is official. Nothing has been officially announced yet. And so we can talk about what we'd like to see versus what is actually going to happen, because those are two very different things. Do you know who they're going to put on the schedule, Jess?
No, do you?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Was it announced?
No, it was not announced, but it's like the worst kept secret based on everything that I've heard. You know what I mean? It's like one of those kind of deals. So I will defer to you at first because you don't even know who this other team is yet. So I'll let you kind of talk about how you would like to fill the schedule, and then I'll tell you how it's actually going to happen.
Yeah. So what I would look at in this situation, and so who remind me again, who was leaving the schedule? Was it Miami?
It's Miami. Yeah.
So
Miami, Florida, because they do have Florida, right? Miami University in Ohio on the schedule still.
I personally would go after a strength of schedule type opponent. And I'm pretty sure I've advocated for like Penn State before. I've advocated for basically whatever is going to help your strength of schedule, just because the strength of schedule on paper is very weak next season. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, well, we haven't really determined what we're going to do at quarterback, and it might be a quarterback development year, yada, yada, yada. I think you got to play the best teams, and I think that's what's really ultimately going to challenge your program the most, especially when you're trying to develop players. So I would go after, a Penn State of the world. I would go after I would go after like a regionally good opponent, like a team that's within like a 300-mile radius, I guess, if I had to pick. And again, Penn State would fall in that area for me.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to be the antagonist on this one because next year they go to the 12-team playoff, right? And a Notre Dame team, and they can't get higher than 5. Like, that's established. Like, Notre Dame can't be higher than 5 in the college football playoff next year because they don't have a conference championship, right? So what you're aiming for is to be 5 through 12, 5 through 11, really, because the group of 5 is going to be in that 12 slot. And so ideally, in my opinion, I think you're aiming for 5 to 8. Like, that's the sweet spot if you're Notre Dame, because then you get to host that first round, right?
Yeah, and obviously if you're the last team in, you got to play one of the best teams.
Well, not the first round. I mean,
oh, yeah, that's right.
First 4 get a bye. So, you want to be 5 through 8. Like, that's where you want to be. So you're going to be playing a lower-ranked team, and you're going to be playing at home in December. Like, that's ideal if you're Notre Dame, right?
Right.
So I just think you need to get in. And I don't think the schedule is all that complicated next year, but I'm okay with that based on where the offense is right now and what the offense potentially look like at the beginning of next year. And so I'm actually okay with what they're going to do, which is not going to be a strength of schedule builder. They're going to be playing Army in a Shamrock Series game at Yankee Stadium is what I heard. So, take that for what it's worth. You're going to get the alternate uniform. You're going to get another service academy, Yankee Stadium, everything that goes along with that. So, I mean, you're going to get the press and the clippings and all of that stuff with it. It's not going to boost your strength of schedule, though. What it is going to do is going to give you another win. And I think at the end of the day, a 10-win team gets you into the playoff. And honestly, I'm sorry. Yeah, a 10-win team. A 9-win team, you're in the conversation, but a 10-win team, I think you're automatically in. And so I would rather be a 10-win team getting in the playoff, no problem. And strength of schedule, I just don't think strength of schedule is not going to matter if they're a 10-win team. It's just not.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I would not want to get caught up of, oh, we just beat another good team. I would want it to be a test of where we really stand before we go into the playoffs type situation. I would want to have a better feel about, because to me, the worst possible thing is we roll through an easy schedule get into the playoffs and then kind of get beat badly, and everyone's not get beat badly, but maybe lose a game that everyone had expectations to win solely because of the number of wins based off the season. So I just think playing a better opponent compared to Army gives fans a better reality of where expectations should be going into a high caliber game like that. That's kind of where I'm seeing it at.
Oh, I get it. I get exactly what you're saying. Winning breeds confidence, and I'm okay with that. I mean, look at Michigan. They're not playing anybody tough, and people have them slated to win the national freaking championship. So I don't think that's going to happen, but that's a different conversation for a different time. And so we'll just move on to the next question. Mr. Stiers, here we go from DK.
Derek wants to know, how long does Sam Hartman stay in this game? Vince, I'll take the lead on this one. I think Sam Hartman plays the entire game if it's a game within close proximity. I think Sam Hartman comes out of the game if he's absolutely brutal and Notre Dame finds itself down 14 points maybe, but I don't think that's going to happen. And then I think Sam Hartman comes out just like he's come out in all the other games when they have a manageable lead to start the fourth quarter. I think those are the only ways he comes out of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, how long does he stay on? I think he's in for 3 quarters. And that's regardless of the situation, to be perfectly honest with you. I think they probably should be up by a considerable amount, and then you give the backup quarterback an entire quarter to go out there and play, some of which should be with the first team offense. So maybe just slightly before the fourth quarter starts. I'd be fine with that. If he's struggling, then you take him out at the end of the third quarter and you let Steve Angeli try to bring him back. I don't know. I mean, if he throws like 4 picks in the first half,
that's what I mean. That's what it's got to be.
Like if he, I mean, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. He's not going to throw 4 picks in the first half, but let's say that it does. Then you pull him at halftime. I mean, you give him the first half, but at halftime you go to somebody else. And that would be the same for anybody.
Yeah. That's not just a Sam Hartman thing.
Correct. That's not, yeah, exactly. So any player that's playing poorly, you got to make a change, right?
You got to make what's in the best interest of your team.
Right. So I just feel like it's going to be a third quarter pull at the end of the third quarter. And I think that they're going to be up by a considerable amount. And that's why he gets pulled, because he's going to light up his former teammates and he's going to give Steve Angeli a few competitive series and then clock killing series. Similar to what we saw against Pitt, frankly.
Yeah, that's how I anticipate this game going. It's very similar to Pitt.
Yep, absolutely agree with that. All right, David.
Since Al Golden coached linebackers in the Super Bowl and is a linebacker coach, along with Max Bola at Notre Dame, since he inherited JD, Maris, and Jack, do you think he's pumped about coaching Drake, Jalen, and Jaden Osbury? I'll go again on this one, Vince, just because I like to talk about linebackers. It's funny. I was looking at Al Golden's kind of coaching history. He's coached on both sides of the ball. Believe it or not, he started off as an offensive coordinator, transitioned to being a linebackers coach, defensive coordinator, and then he went into the head coach. But when he got back into the NFL, he was actually a tight ends coach for a year and then shifted back over to linebackers coach. I don't look at this as what he inherited. I still think he's playing the best players on the team, right? I think JD, Maris, and Jack are your best linebackers. I don't think they have the highest ceiling compared to Drake, Jalen, and Jaden Osbury. I think Al Golden is very appreciative of the intelligence that JD Bertrand, Maris Leofau, and Jack Kaiser bring and their experience. And that's something that you can't just translate to Drake, Jalen, and Jaden Osbury going forward. I do think next season, definitely one of Drake and Jaden Osbury will be playing. I think definitely one of JD Bertrand and Maris Leofau will also be playing. So I think the third spot is really the most, it has the biggest question mark above it. And so, yeah, I do think he's, at the end of the day, excited to coach some of these young guys. But ultimately, when they're ready. And I just don't think that they are ready yet. But it would probably be nice for Al Golden to, it's always nice for linebackers to start at the beginning and end at the end with the same linebacker coach. And you can't say that for JD Bertrand, Jack Kaiser, or Maris Leofau right now. They've had, 3 different defensive coordinators, linebacker coaches over the last 3 to 4 seasons. And so it's obviously going to benefit everyone involved: Al Golden, Drake Bowen, Jaden Osbury, having, a coach from beginning to end, assuming that he stays. So I ultimately think that there's a lot to be excited about amongst all 6 of those guys, and figuring out how to piece it together is going to be the biggest challenge for Al Golden.
Yeah, the way, I don't know if David meant it to be this way, but he's making it sound like Al Golden was like, oh man, he inherited these other guys. It's gonna be great to get to this next group. Al Golden is absolutely infatuated with the 3 guys that are starting. He loves veteran leadership. He loves smart guys. Like, that's who he wants on the field. Now, if the new generation of linebackers can prove that they are heady and smart and all of those things from a football IQ standpoint and all of that, he'll love them too, right? But I guarantee you, if you give him some truth serum, as he's laying in bed at night thinking, he's not overly happy he's going to lose all those veterans all at once and have to turn, if that ends up being what happens, and all of a sudden you're turning it over to 3 new guys, like, that is not what a defensive coordinator wants to do. You know what I mean? Like, they don't want to. I know he knows the talent level and he knows the plays that these guys can make and all of that, but he wants that quarterback on the field, man. There is no doubt about it as a coach. Like, that's why I was always happy to have Jesse Stiers in the middle of the defense, because you knew where everybody else was supposed to be. You can't. That's something that you just can't replace, overnight. And so that's going to be tough for him for sure.
There's a lot to be said, Vince, about the mental game can provide more quickness than actual quickness at times. And I think a lot of people overlook that fact of, if you don't know where you're going, it's hard to get there quickly, right? And if you're JD Bertrand and you know where you're going, you might be a little bit, athletically slower than some of these other guys. You're still going to get there quicker because you know where you're supposed to be and you know where everyone else is supposed to end up, right? And so that's kind of what we've talked about as being someone like JD Bertrand's biggest strength ultimately.
No doubt about it.
Oh wow, we have Sean and Ryan Roberts in the chat right now.
Seriously, and one is saying
a star-studded event.
One's being nice, just saying hi to everyone. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. The other one is throwing some haymakers from wherever he is in the world. I don't know if he's on his way to DC or what. And Sean Steyer says, when was the last time Vince was right about the offense? Ouch, man. Like, that hurts. That hurts. I feel like I need to go back and look at his prediction for the Clemson game, because I feel like he probably predicted the offense to do better in that game too. Just saying. I'm just saying. Let's see. Did he respond? No, he hasn't. Silence from the Steyers household. But I know he is on the reason Sean's not here, everybody, in case we didn't explain it before. He is going to be en route to Washington, D.C., because that is where the Lady Irish are going to be headed for their next game. And I can't September. What is this? Man, I don't know what September means.
I think he was answering. Right? I think he was answering his first question about when was the last time you were.
Dang. Just shots being fired. It hurts. It hurts. That's okay. Still love you, Sean. So, and Ryan's going to throw his shots back. My favorite Steyers is on the show today.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan Roberts.
Thanks, Squirrel. Thanks for the backup. Appreciate that one. All right. We actually have a question here from a brand new commenter, which I love. So we're going to bring it up. A two-parter.
Casey Curley. Thank you, Casey Curley. Longtime listener, first time commenting. Thank you. Ding. Off topic, right? But what are y'all's thoughts on the white pants? I personally love them and think we should wear them once or twice a year. 2 of 2, especially if they match Notre Dame on the pants to the color of the numbers. Blue, blue, green, green, gold, gold. Thank you for all that you do. Casey Curley, this is I know this is going to open a can of worms. People are going to say, oh, we lost in them. Can't wear them again. Just like the green jerseys, every time we wear them, we play bad. None of that matters. I thought the white on white looked clean, to be honest with you. I love the white on white, but like you were hinting at, I think you can do just a little bit more to accent it with some of your gold, some of your blue, some of your green, whatever you decide to do. That's fine. I was surprised by the white pants. Vince, I didn't even know that they were a thing because I was off my phone until the game started. So it was a complete surprise to me. And then once I looked at Twitter and everything, I saw that it kind of, people are already tweeting and talk about it hours before the game. It was fresh to me. I was excited when they turned them out. I was like, wow, I can't remember the last time Notre Dame has ever worn white on white. I don't think they've ever done it in a regular season game. I loved it. And I think that was kind of the basics of it. And you can do just a little bit more to tinker with it.
Yes, I agree. Maybe like a green stripe down the side and
yeah,
that kind of a thing. I love
a
the
green
white
shamrock on the pants, somewhere.
Man. I love the white on white. I'm a big fan of the white on white. I think that this day and age, the white on white on turf is better than white on white on natural grass, which is what they were playing on at Clemson. I don't like it when it gets all dirty and everything. Like, you want to keep that clean look, the icy clean look the whole way. But I loved it, man. Like, I really loved the white on white. I was down for it. I was excited about it. And then, of course, when they lost, I was thinking the same thing. Like, oh, people are going to hate it now because, they lost or whatever. But I really, really like the white on white. And I think they do need to have it a couple of times a year. No doubt. I'm not always a fan of the monochromatic green on green, blue on blue. Like, I'm not always a fan of that. I like
the only monochromatic color that should be legal is white on white.
Bingo. Absolutely agree. Like, if I was ever a head coach again, or a head coach for football, I would absolutely have a white on white combination. There's no way. I mean, it's one of my favorite looks. And honestly, you can keep the white pants for both. I like a white pant, to be honest with you. And so white with any color on top is a great look. I don't want to get rid of the gold pants, but I'm just saying white at home would not be a terrible look either.
I just like that it's an alternate, right? It's a switch up from seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And while it's like, okay, that doesn't really matter. No, but it's still nice to switch it up every now and then. And like someone said, the white on white is just icy, man. You get the white jersey, the white pants, you get white spats, you're just about to do as much white as you can as possible, and it looks so good. And we had white uniforms that we wore in high school, and we always wore red pants. But I loved when we wore our white uniforms, even if they weren't the most slimming looking thing. Personally, it just felt cool to wear as much white as possible because you just felt so clean, right? And then at the end of the game, you could see your battle scars, essentially, or your battle marks, right? At the end of especially playing as a linebacker, it was nice to have grass stains or dirt stains all over because it meant you did something in the game. And so I love the white uniforms.
And Terry Tyler agrees with you. He says grass stains mean you're doing something. He disagrees with me that they shouldn't have worn them on the natural grass. I appreciate that, Terry. I do. I do appreciate
the only time I didn't like the white uniforms is when we were playing some mud bowls, and those were not fun to be wearing the white uniform. Didn't matter what you were wearing, you could tell that what the mud was everywhere.
It's not fun for the equipment manager either. That's for darn sure. So, all right, a couple more here before we get to good old rapid fire. We've got a bunch of good stuff in here. How about something from Josh Buffo, the motivational business banker?
Business, standing on business. Mailbag. What would you rather see happen next season? Cam Williams become a dude from day one, or Notre Dame start a quarterback from in-house game one next season? I'll be short and quick about this one. I want a quarterback to start from game one next season. It's time to put the foot in the ground. It's time for Marcus Freeman to officially start his quarterback development camp. I'm just calling it that. Don't quote me on that. It's not a real thing, but he's got to start at some point. And I think next season has to be it. And while going into College Station is going to be a challenge, Texas A&M has a lot going on right now. And so hopefully Notre Dame can take advantage of that situation.
I am 100% on board with you. I want them to turn to a quarterback that is in-house with, Carr potentially coming in early. I think that doesn't even out the playing field, but it makes it a legitimate three-way competition, I think, going into spring ball, which I do like. And, I said this on the show earlier in the week, I have no problem with them going out and getting another scholarship quarterback. I have no problem with that at all. I just don't want them to go out and get a guaranteed starter in the transfer portal. I just don't want to. There are very few people that it would excite me that are out there playing college football right now that could come into Notre Dame, and I would be like, yes, I don't care about the competition. That guy's starting. I don't know. I just don't feel that way about anybody this year. Now, maybe somebody out there could change my mind when I hear that Notre Dame is pursuing somebody. But if you want to continue to bring in high-level quarterbacks, you got to play them at some point. Like that's where we're at. And I think next year's schedule is very conducive to bringing in a first-year quarterback. And anybody that was super worried about game one, it's a dumpster fire down there in Texas A&M. Yeah, it's going to be a raucous environment. Yeah, Marcus Freeman has shown that he, maybe road games are his kryptonite at the moment. I get all of that. It's going to be a brand new head coach. The let's just say the exit turnstile at Texas A&M is going to be a lot busier than the entering turnstile. And so, who knows what this team's going to look like, and it's going to be game one for them too. So I just really like the fact that they will hopefully go to an in-house quarterback. That's where I'm at, because I think Cam Williams is going to be great, but is he going to be great in game one? I would rather have the quarterback one for sure. All right. Let's see. A couple more before we get out of here to rapid fire. Here, DK has a question about how off-season works.
Derek wants to know, in the offseason, when quarterbacks work out with wide receivers on their own, how does that work when you have 3 possible starters? Do they all go and take turns versus having a clear starter? I would say, first of all, I don't 100% know, but all these guys are going to be on campus, and so for most of the summer. And I would say what you would ultimately see is one of two things: a group session where everyone's just kind of doing their thing together. I don't think it's any, ones are going with ones or twos are going with two. It's just guys having fun. It's like backyard football. You're just throwing routes. Everyone's out there to get better. It doesn't really matter who's throwing the ball to who. And then the second way this happens is you probably have wide receivers who hitting up quarterbacks saying, hey, when you got some free time, I got some free time here. And so it'll be a lot of maybe when guys have free time together at the end of the day. So that's kind of how, I would look at it, those two options.
Yeah, it's not like a cutthroat situation in the offseason. I mean, at least not the vast majority of the time. Like, they're going to rotate around. It's going to be guys throwing to guys. There are some 7-on-7 stuff that they do, but a lot of times it's just guys throwing routes on air. It's one-on-ones. It's things along those lines. So it's, like you said, it's not, okay, here come the ones, here come the two. Like, that's not
backyard
a thing.
Football.
Everybody is together. Everybody is taking reps with everybody. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. You just want to get as many reps as possible.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. So it's not like they're taking reps behind an offensive line or anything like that. Like, that doesn't happen, in the off season. So it'll be rotated around for sure. All right. Last one before we get to rapid fire. We were hoping somebody was going to ask about women's basketball, and TD for ND finally did.
Thank you, TD, for ND. Hopefully, our standby reporter on the tarmac might be able to provide some input here and there. Any word on Sonia Citron? Vince, go ahead.
The answer is no. There is no official word on Sonia Citron. I mean, obviously, she went out. It was clearly something that had to do with her knee. I saw it on TV. But that's really all we can say. Is it a bruise? Is it a tear? We don't know. And we're not going to know until, Notre Dame puts out an official word. I just hate anytime a basketball player starts grabbing their knee after going down like that. It just
not usually a good sign, Vince.
It's not usually a good sign. And that's just me talking from watching many, many hours of basketball over my years. And, if, like, let's speak in the world of if, right? If she's out, that is a huge blow to this team.
Yeah, I think that's more of the talking point, Vince, is if Sonia Citron is out, the strength of this team was already at the guard position, and now you were out without Olivia Miles, and now you're out without Sonia Citron. All of your you would be leaning on now Hannah Hidalgo, the freshman, and relying on her to really run this offense. And again, there was not that this team had notable deficiencies, right? Because we're only 4 games into the season. But Notre Dame's obvious deficiency coming out of that South Carolina game is their post presence. Yep. Their biggest bright spot was their guard play. And, the hope was they'd get Olivia Miles back, and then you have a 3-headed monster at guard. Well, now you're down to 1, and you might not get, potentially one could be out for the whole season now. We don't know when Olivia Miles is going to be back. So to me, I think Niele Ivey really has to put her coaching hat on and really come up with some solutions here on the fly for her young guard and Hannah Hidalgo.
Yeah, it's just tough to put a lot of that kind of pressure on a freshman. Obviously, it's not the position that you want to be in, especially after the game that they had last night. I mean, that was just a fun game to watch. Obviously, just points galore. You had and Sonia had 23 points in 28 minutes. Like that's pretty impressive. I mean, she was money. She was 3 of 5 from 3-point land. She was hitting those buzzer beating shots from beyond the arc. I mean, not only is she an offensive presence that you would miss, but she's also a leader. I mean, she's been in the program. She has started since forever, it feels like, right? And she was kind of that calming presence to Hannah Hidalgo. And now you're putting a lot of pressure on a freshman. And I think that's going to be really, really tough. I'm not saying that Hannah can't handle it because I think she's a really, really talented player. There's no doubt about it.
There's a reason why she's playing already.
100%. I mean, and there's a reason she was ranked the way she was coming out of high school, right? I mean, she was on Team USA, all of those different things, all well-earned, things. And it's just a lot of pressure to put on her with a team that is a top 10 caliber team, and asking a freshman to do all of that. So she's going to need some help. Obviously, I think, Anna DeWolf is going to have to step up. Maddie Westbeld's going to have to step up. Kylie Watson's going to have to step up down low. She was already going to have to. But this was supposed to be a guard-centered team, and you've now lost 2 of your best guards. That's tough, man. That's tough. So I'm a hopeful. I think they are a very well-coached team, man. I love what Niele Ivey does with this squad. I mean, she obviously recruits her butt off. It's too bad. Right. It's too bad the gal that they just signed can't, suit up now because she's like the number 1 post in the country in the class of 24, right? It's too bad right. she can't come and play right now. So yeah, I'm into it. I'm excited about this team, but if she's out, which we don't know, but if she's out, that is just a huge blow for this team to take so early on in the year, for sure.
Yeah, but ultimately, this is, not going to be a great situation. But like you said, it is going to show, 1, toughness of this team, 2, Niele Ivey's ability to, again, maneuver through a situation that she obviously wasn't prepared right. for, and 3, who are going to be the leaders of your team, right? Whoever steps up in these moments are going to be the people that you're going to, or the players that you're going to rely on as the season goes on. And so I think if you're everyone else on this team, it's a tremendous opportunity to step up, right? Who is going to take on the role of leading this team and helping them get through this situation?
Right. Yep. Absolutely agree.
There was another comment from our Tarmac reporter up in the chat, if you saw it.
That's true. I did see it. Here we go. Sean Sayers says, "There's only so much I can say. She's on the team flight. Keep expectations low. Read into that what you will." So there
Perfect
you go.
Way to end that.
You can read into it what you will, folks. All right, Jesse Stiers, are you ready for some rapid fire, sir?
Let's do this thing.
All right, man. I may go in a different order than it's on here just to mess with your head.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do some Notre Dame stuff first. So just got done talking about the women's basketball team. Let's talk about the men. After watching the Notre Dame men's team play 2 games, they sit at 1-1. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your confidence level when they tip tonight at 9:00 versus Auburn?
My confidence level, 10 being extremely confident, 1 being, ooh, this could get a little ugly. I'm going to be optimistic and put it at a 3 here at the end of the day. Listen, they came back and got it done against Niagara. Was it a great looking win? No. Did they pull it off? Yeah, but immediately in that moment, I said, okay, this is probably what this season is going to be, right? And not to jump to the conclusion so early, but, they settled in, pulled out, came back and beat that Niagara team. And then what happens next? They lose against probably not a great team, right? I think that Auburn is going to present many challenges for the Notre Dame men's team. just like a lot of teams are this season. There's a reason why they were predicted to finish last in the ACC. This kind of starts the beginning of where it might get a little ugly for Notre Dame men's basketball. But as fans, I don't think we should panic. I think we should kind of feel, this was largely expected, right? Notre Dame's going to take some lumps this season, but you got to be able to find the bright spots. So I'm hoping with low expectations, we can find some bright spots against Auburn.
So just so everybody knows, Auburn has played 2 games. They are unranked. They played number 15 Baylor, lost by 6. And then they played SLU. SLU. I don't even know. Maybe that's St. Louis University. I'm not even sure.
Southern Louisiana, maybe.
Is that what it is? Okay. Let's go with it. I have no idea. Actually, let's click on this and find out. Southeastern Louisiana.
Come on.
Southeastern Louisiana Lions is who that was, and Auburn won by 15 in that game. So they're sitting at 1-on-1 as well. This is obviously Notre Dame's biggest test up to this point. So a scale of 1 to 10, I'll go slightly higher than Jesse, and I will go with a 4 because I do think this team is going to beat teams they should beat. I mean, they are scrappy enough defensively.
They'll sneak a couple out.
Yeah, they're I mean this in the most pleasing and confident way possible, in the most complimentary way possible. They're a bunch of dumb freshmen. They don't know who they're supposed to beat and who they're not supposed to beat, right? They're going to go out there and they're going to play hard and they're going to play their butts off. And honestly, if threes were just dropping for this team in the last game, they win by a lot. They just couldn't hit the ocean in the last game. And so, you never know what's going to happen. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen night to night with this squad, and I think they've got a shot. They got a puncher's chance, but yeah, I'll stick at a 4. But at the end of the day, this team is fun to watch. I really do enjoy watching this team. I was at the game on Saturday. I'm going to watch the game tonight. I'm going to try to watch the game tonight. We'll see how late I make it, but I'm excited to watch this team play, and this is their first road test, so it should be good. We'll see. All right, let's see here. Next question. Jesse Stiers. It is the 30th anniversary of the movie Rudy. And this deleted scene has been floating around social media throughout the day, where it shows the family at dinner, and Rudy's father is explaining why Notre Dame football means so much to his family. I know you've seen it. So buy or sell them taking this scene out of the movie.
I'm going to sell this one, Vince, because when I watched the clip, I personally got a lesson about, the meaning of Notre Dame to a lot of immigrant Catholics, essentially, at the end of the day. That's who it boils down to, right? Some of the I wouldn't call them poor, but they were less fortunate than probably some of the other Catholics in the area. And so you had these immigrant Catholics, and in the scene that you're talking about how, it was an opportunity to play for, a team in the middle of the country, and et cetera. And I think that, again, whether you're a fan of not or not, I think that scene tells a kind of the backbone for why Notre Dame means so much to a lot of people, even if they didn't go to Notre Dame, even if they never played for Notre Dame, et cetera. It provided kind of, some unity for a group of people during a specific time period in this country, and why Notre Dame was so meaningful to them. So I sell it. I thought that it's a great scene, again, to show why Notre Dame means so much to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a huge sell for me. Like, I feel like that whole scene just encompassed why Notre Dame was so important to the dad, and therefore why it was so important to Rudy specifically. Like, he wanted to fulfill his dad's dream that he passed down to Rudy. And you get that in the movie, but I feel like that scene specifically really tells you why Notre Dame football was so important to Rudy, his dad, and then all, like you said, all of the other immigrant Catholic Italians, the Polish, the Irish, all of these different groups. Because, and he said it, like, a line from that scene is, when Notre Dame won, we
all won. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, that was like, I got goosebumps when I was watching that. Now, I'm a
You're a big Rudy guy.
Huge Rudy guy. I will say it, and I'm not ashamed to say it. But, like, that scene was like, man, wow. How could you watch that entire movie and be like, yep, that's the scene we're taking out?
Well, that scene just fires the people up. That's what that scene does.
And it moves the storyline in the direction that you want to. Like, if you're just talking from a storytelling standpoint, like, it moves the storyline and it gives motivation to the protagonist on why he's doing what he's doing. I don't know why they took it out, man. Apparently there's like a director's commentary like after or over it or something. I'm gonna have to go buy this, obviously. But apparently there's a director's commentary and they talk about it. And I don't think there's any excuse that they can give as to a good reason as to why they took it out. It makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Let's go with, I know you want to talk about this. So it is blank that this afternoon it was announced that Jim Harbaugh will accept the punishment handed down by the Big Ten in return for the Big Ten settling the case against Michigan. So they're not even going to look into it anymore. They're just going to be happy that Jim Harbaugh took the punishment, I guess, like a man, but not really.
Yeah. First of all, when does freaking Harbaugh do anything like a man at the end of the day? But to answer your question, Vince, this is hypocritically hilarious to me at the end of the day, because when all of this came out, all Michigan talked about was, we're gonna fight this. We don't have anything to hide. We're innocent. Right. We have these lawyers. They're going to, they're going to dispute everything that you guys found, essentially, right? Michigan didn't do anything wrong, yada, yada, yada. To me, it's kind of an admission of guilt at the end of the day, because if you were so caught up of you didn't do anything wrong, you have nothing to hide, we have all these lawyers, they found all these loopholes, we're going to fight it, blah, blah, blah. Vince, no one just takes their punishment without fighting it unless they have they're in checkmate, essentially, right? I think they realized it was a better look just to take the suspension, because the more they fought it, the more details would come out, Vince. The more the public would find out. And so I think they just took their lump. They said, okay, we know that this could probably get a lot worse. And I think it still is going to get a lot worse.
Oh,
This is just the Big Ten, right? I think Michigan took this because they know what's to come. And they know if they take this 3-game suspension, it'll hopefully die out. And they can ride into the playoffs. They can ride into potentially their national championship. Listen, Michigan is in a sprint right now to get this season over with as fast as possible, because to them, I feel like if they can get these wins on, no matter what, they'll never be vacated from them at the end of the day. And so they are in a sprint to finish the season. And it's an admission of guilt. They know that this is only the tip of the iceberg. I think a lot more is to come.
I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head as far as they are so nervous that more, like, the information has been coming out like a broken dam. Like, it's just flowing out, like everything that they're finding. And now we're finding out today also that it wasn't Ohio State that blew the whistle. It was the freaking FBI are the ones that blew the whistle on them, because they were already on campus investigating something else. Like, it can't. Just when you think it can't get any worse, it just continues to get worse. And it's like I got my popcorn ready. I'm enjoying it. It's fantastic. But this is absolutely, in my opinion, an admission of guilt. And they're like, oh, no, just stop. There's nothing to see. Just stop looking. We'll do whatever you want us to do. Just stop looking.
Yeah, stop bringing this to national attention.
100%.
Let us fly under the radar. Let us sprint to the finish line. Let us win these games.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's like they want to make sure that they get to the end of this season, because they think they're going to win the national championship, obviously.
Right.
And they know the NCAA is going to take forever to get this figured out. And so they want the Big Ten to just back off so they can go win the national championship. And then it doesn't matter what the NCAA does to them after the fact.
Exactly.
Because I heard somebody, national radio person or whatever, they're like, there's no way that Jim Harbaugh and this staff are back next year after all of this. So they're going to win their national championship. It doesn't matter anymore. And then they move on and they take whatever sanctions that they get.
Yeah, and all the fans will be so delusional of, oh, we won a national championship.
Right.
It's all this hoax. It's all, whatever. You can't take that away from us.
100%. And my response to that would be Fab 5. but whatever. So that would be
I mean, how long did it take? They took Reggie's Heisman away. It took a while, but they took Reggie's Heisman away.
I think he was married with kids, but whatever. They took it away finally. Yeah, so they're banking on the NCAA taking their sweet time so that they can. The last thing they want is like a bowl ban this year. You know what I mean? Like that's the last. I feel like
the more they fight it, the more that they could get themselves into.
Absolutely, it's like doth protest too much. You know what I mean? Like just shut up and let things happen, man. Like ridiculous.
It's almost like a plea deal, Vince.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. Like, okay, if you stop investigating, we'll have our head coach sit out these next 2 games.
It's a plea deal, baby,
and we won't fight it.
Like, you know what happens in plea deals? It means you're guilty.
Exactly. You go to jail, usually. What it means. So, yeah. All right. 2 more questions, I do believe. All right, here we go. Jesse, you are officially a member of the media because you're on this show. Okay. So I'm going to ask this question to you. In a recent interview, Carissa Thompson, who is a sideline reporter for football games, she admitted to making up various storylines from the sideline during her broadcast. So, like, in other words, if a coach ignored her coming out of the locker room, she would make up what he said, essentially. Just make it up. To you, this is blank.
This is innovative, Vince, because listen though, if I'm Carissa Thompson and my job is to be on the sideline and get these sideline reports at before and after halftime, and a coach blows me off, how embarrassing is that to say, on national television? Well, I tried to talk to this guy, but he blew me off, so I don't got anything to talk about. I find it innovative that she went out there and was like, you know what? Because it's not like she was making up like she had to still use context clues for what's going on in the game, right? Like you're not going to say, oh, Georgia coach told me this when they're getting, blown out by someone or they're not playing well. Like you're going to have to follow the storyline of what's going on in the game. So it's innovative. It's still not a good look to say, like, she didn't have to say that though. The thing is she tattled on herself. So I find that to be very stupid. But still, it's innovative at the end of the day because, like I said, her job is to report on the sideline. And when they cut to her, I think it would be very embarrassing of her to be like, well, I got nothing to say. So
well, I think she does have a say into when they cut to her. Like, they don't just like randomly cut to her and she's like sitting there smoking a cigarette or something. Like, he knows when the cuts are coming. So, I just feel like, it's first of all, number one, why are you tattling on yourself? Like that might be the worst thing. That's the most egregious thing.
Oh man.
According to social media, and that's a stretch all by itself. But like all these other sideline reporters are just bashing her left and right about how, she's just taking advantage of the situation and she's, giving a bad name to all sideline reporters and all of this, all this stuff. And it's like, this one, I can't remember who it was. She's like, everybody thinks we're eye candy anyway. And now they think we're making stuff up. It's just.
It's not a good look.
It's not a good look, man. Like, you have now alienated your colleagues. That's not good, man. Like, that is not good for your career. That's what I'll say to that. Like, if you need to make stuff up, then friggin' do it. But don't tell anybody about it, especially on an interview, like on a radio platform or podcast or whatever it was. Like, that was
pretty sure it was on Barstool Big Cats podcast.
Oh, was it? Oh, you mean the most famous podcast out there right now?
The one that everyone listens to?
Yeah. I know for a fact that a lot of people follow Barstool, okay? And it's not the place.
For personal experience?
Personal experience, yeah. And that's not the place to air your dirty laundry, so to speak. So probably not a great move there on her part. But she's going to feel the wrath of this one. If I was going to give her any advice, I'd be like, hey, just sit there and be quiet because eventually it'll all go away. Yeah. All right, last one, and then we'll get out of here. Sources are saying that it's going to be a bidding war between the Cubs and the Dodgers for free agent Shohei Ohtani. So scale of 1 to 10, your confidence level that he lands in Chicago?
Vince, I'm trying not to get myself too hyped up, too emotionally invested. Because, I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the best player in baseball.
You're not wrong.
We're talking about the most important player in baseball, a guy who can hit 40 dingers a season and give you like a sub-3 ERA. Not a lot of people can say that.
Right.
Scale of 1 to 10. If 10 is being, Cubs are definitely getting them. 1 is not a chance. I sit at like a 5 or 6. I think it's about a 50-50 coin flip for who gets Shohei Ohtani. And I would say there's two things. There's a couple factors that play into it. I think Ohtani could enjoy the comfortability of the West Coast, right? Like who wouldn't love that? Good weather.
Sure.
You don't have to deal about the cold, different market, etc. And as being a guy who, came to the United States, he has to be comfortable with that area, right? He's lived in that area. So that has to play into it.
Right. He was playing in LA before.
I would say that the other thing that potentially, what could lean more towards the Cubs' favor is, he's apparently sat down with guys like Yu Darvish. He's talked to people about what the Cubs organization is. I think that the Cubs can put together a better package. And if you want to tell Shohei Ohtani, hey, the easy decision is to go join the Dodgers. They're an already star-studded lineup, right?
Sure.
I think you could be a part of something more if you join the Chicago Cubs. And I think that he can be like the star, right? Like I feel with the Dodgers, you're fighting with Mookie Betts, you're fighting with Freddie Freeman, you're fighting with, some of these other guys. Yeah, the Cubs have Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, Ian Happ. Those guys aren't Mookie Betts. Those guys aren't Freddie Freeman. If Shohei Ohtani comes to Chicago, he will be the man of Chicago. You know what I mean? Like and I know people are going to call me crazy. I think it's a big deal that Seiya Suzuki plays for the Cubs. That's still someone to have comfortability with. Yep. It's someone that you can have communications with in your own native language. You know what I mean? In your own native language. You don't have to worry about going through a translator. I don't know. I just see that there's benefits on both sides. So really it's a coin flip. I'm going to go a 5 out of 10.
I am about a 6, to be honest with you. I did a lot of reading today, and I didn't want to get
rid of the biasy.
I didn't want to get excited.
Right.
I was reading a lot about it. Number one, the Cubs are in the running for a couple of other Japanese pitchers who are coming over.
Yes, and I think that also plays a part, man. I think you could have this group of Japanese players, and what's more comfortable to play with, players of your own culture.
So I think that's part of it, right? That's a box to check if they can land those guys. Number 2, when he came over in 2017, remember the Cubs were just coming off a World Series. They were one of the finalists to get him in the first place, and one of the only reasons that he went to LA and played for the Angels is because the Cubs in the National League did not have the DH. They have the DH now. And so I think if the Cubs had the DH in 2017, when they still had their nucleus and they were coming off a World Series, there's a good chance he would have been a Cub in 2017, right? I think they're going to take advantage of their second opportunity to go get him. I'm excited about the fact that they're willing to spend the money. They got 2 big contracts that came off the books. And so
they got the money.
They do have the money. And now here's my only reservation. I don't want them to go get him and then just shut it down. You know what I mean? Like, they got to address first base. They got to address third base. They got to address, the starting pitching. There's things that they have to address. And I don't want it to end.
You can't tie all your assets into one guy.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing for me. So if they get him and they don't shut it down and they go out and they get a couple of other pieces, it's a playoff team, man, and a playoff team that's going to make some noise.
Yeah, I think they're a playoff team with or without Shohei Ohtani. I think they're a World Series contender if they add Shohei Ohtani. And man, I just, like you said, I'm not trying to get my hopes up too much, but like I've read reports that they're ready to. They have like a deal in place that they're ready to propose like tomorrow. Like they are ready. Yeah, ready. And so what lucrative means to me is they might package up Morel. They might package up. They have one of the best farm systems in baseball right now. That's why you got those guys. You have guys at every level, so you're ready to make a move like this. And when they have the bankroll where they're at right now, a lot of salary off the books, like you talked about, I think it's a one in a generation type opportunity, and you got to do everything you can to go out there and get it.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of IB Nation Sports Talk. Jesse, thanks for hanging out with me on a Thursday. Really appreciate it. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. Obviously, there's going to be a show tomorrow, 1 o'clock, or in that neighborhood. It's Friday. And then we're going to be back Saturday morning. I think it gets posted Friday night, but Friday night, Saturday morning with the pregame show as Notre Dame takes on Wake Forest for the 3:30 kickoff at Notre Dame Stadium, Senior Day. Sam Hartman versus his old team, all the headlines, all the excitement, who's going to play, who's not going to play, what's the offense going to look like. Guess what? We get to find out in a couple of days.
All together at the same time.
That's right. So everybody tune in, have some fun with it. And it might be the last game you get to see since they're going to be on the Pac-12 network the following week. So, which is so dumb. But anyway, I digress. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, the notification bell, all of the fun things that we ask you to do. And thank you for being a part of IB Nation, folks. We love all of you, especially Tommy, who says
Tommy and Derek are my two favorite people in this entire world. There's nothing that they can say that will ever change my mind.
See, there you go. There's some love for you, Tommy, right from Jesse Stiers' mouth. So boom, there we go. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you next time on IB Nation Sports Talk.